Hi there, this is Solitude Ronan from Solitude Ronan Films, and welcome to another episode of Double Take. And this episode features Gus Van Sant's 2003 film called Elephant, and Alan Clarke's 1989 film called Elephant. Now, the reason that Alan Clarke's Elephant is called Elephant is it's about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and it's just for the phrase the elephant in the room, as in the people of Northern Ireland just get so used to the violence that it's kind of the elephant in the room. And the reason that Gus Van Sant's film is called Elephant is because one of his friends was a huge admirer of Alan Clarke's film Elephant. So that's why that's called Elephant. Both films are kind of just made for a double take, because there's so much of Alan Clarke's Elephant in Gus Van Sant's Elephant. And for this video I'm probably going to say the word elephant quite a lot. So we'll start with Alan Clarke's from 1989. This is only a 40-minute film, which was originally shown BBC Two. I don't actually remember it being on at the time. I remember things like Scum by Alan Clarke being on the TV, but I don't actually remember Elephant. And this film has only one line of dialogue. There's not a lot of dialogue. This is essentially showing 18 execution type shootings, just one after the other, in various places, from garages to industrial estates to muddy football pitches to offices to abandoned factories to car parks to front doorsteps. It opens with one in a swimming pool. And all it is just relentless 18 shootings. And you can kind of say, well, what's the point of that? Because maybe at the end you actually get complacent a little bit about it. But that's kind of the point, because mainland Britain at that time, the kind of Troubles were kind of, oh yeah, it's over there. And we just kind of got news of big events, whether there was riots or bombings and stuff like that. It was always kind of big things that were reported. But actually, over the period of 20 years, there was 2,000 of these kind of one-on-one executions in abandoned buildings. Alan Clarke and producer Danny Boyle got kind of police records just to have, these lists of kind of where these killings happened. So it does kind of show the pointlessness of it. There's no backstory, there's no characters, there's no conventional framing of what a film should be. You don't know which side who's on. A lot of them, you don't know whether the first person is going to be the shooter or the victim. There's a strange tension. There's a rhythm to it. So scenes will start with somebody walking into a building or walking into a car park or a swimming pool, shooting somebody and then walking away. And then the camera goes back to the corpse and spends an uncomfortably long period of time just staring at the corpse. There's no music. There's no glamour to the shootings. It's not stylized. It is, however, shot. A lot of it's shot in Steadicam, so you do feel you're kind of with the person who's walking at times. Some of the scenes have a kind of cyclical format. It kind of starts and finishes with the same kind of shot, and there is a kind of surreal absurdity to it, just as man kind of walks, meets other man, shoots him dead, walks away. And again, there is a kind of absurdity to it, but you do get, there's just an absurdness and a pointlessness to it. The people who do the shootings, there's no emotion in their face, there's no joy or whatever. It's just kind of world weary people killing other world weary people. The environments are foggy and grimy and battered and worn out, and it's a strangely beautiful film, which obviously sounds odd, but there's just a kind of rhythm to it, and there is, just because of the Steadicam, there's this kind of otherworldly feel about it. At times, especially in the shooting in the swimming pool, it actually reminds you a little bit of Paths of Glory, just that Steadicam, but it just happens to be along corridors. There's a killing near the end where two men go into like an abandoned factory or whatever it is, and they just seem to walk for miles, and the tension kind of builds as you don't know whether they're shooters or whether they're victims. There's no women in the film, there's no kids in the film, there's no music. Again, it's just kind of empty, tired men killing other empty, tired men. It's funny, this Blu-ray is part of the wonderful BFI Alan Clarke box set, which Nazarene Productions did a lot of videos on the contents of this box, so I'll put a link in my description because his videos are excellent on Alan Clarke. But this one actually has a 21 minute episode of Open Air, which is kind of like points of view. The general public phone in, and in this occasion they phone in and basically complain to Alan Clarke about how, well, somebody actually says the killings are just pointless, I don't get the point of it. And it's like, and there's also an audio commentary with Danny Boyle and Mark Kermode on it, which is very interesting as well. I would highly recommend picking up this Blu-ray set. I really need to watch more of the films. So that's Alan Clarke's Elephant from 1989. So let's move on to Gus Van Sant's Elephant from 2003, which I didn't actually realise, but it actually won the Palme d'Or for Best Director in 2003. And this is Van Sant's look at high school shootings, which obviously is another elephant in the room. This was made a couple of years after Columbine, and it's kind of loosely inspired by Columbine. I remember seeing this not long after it was made, and obviously I think there was a furore about this as well. But it's funny watching Alan Clarke's Elephant, which I was less familiar with than Van Sant's Elephant. Obviously, the name comes from Alan Clarke's film, but there's so much in common. Van Sant shot it in a real high school. He used real high school students, so there's pretty much no professional actors in the film, with the exception of Matt Malloy, who's like a Hal Hartley regular, and Timothy Bottoms, who's obviously been in so much stuff, as one of the students' fathers. And again, Van Sant, obviously if you watch these back to back, you can see a kind of similarity. Van Sant kind of wanted to shoot it in the spirit of cinema verite, so there's very long takes, there's fixed camera with characters walking off in the distance, there is nice tracking shots, and again it has a kind of almost dreamlike quality as it focuses on several characters or several students in the school, and also the shooters, and again it's shot in a very banal, matter-of-fact way. The violence, when the violence comes, is very matter-of-fact. Again, Van Sant didn't want to have it, exciting or, stylized in any way, so the shooting is very matter-of-fact. It's only 75 minutes, this film. It's funny, both films are pretty short, but it's just about the right length. I think anything longer than that, it would have kind of been stretching it out to the nth degree. So at the 20-minute mark, one of the students comes out of the school as the two shooters go into the school with their bags of guns, essentially. But then it cuts to other people. You'll have a scene from one character's perspective, and then you get the scene from another character's perspective. Characters will walk past two characters from a previous scene, so all kind of crisscrosses. We see the shooters ordering their guns online. We see them preparing, going round the school and making notes of what the kind of biggest kill area would be. At one point, one of the shooters is asked by another student, what you planning, and he just kind of goes, "Oh, you'll find out." Again, the shooters away from school are just shown again in a very banal, matter-of-fact manner. I think Van Sant got into trouble for showing the shooters, but again, if we don't try and understand why people do this, then that's never going to stop, even though it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. We see one of the shooters in class kind of getting picked on. There is kind of conversations, with girls, and it's, a typical kind of high school banal conversations where people think that, what they do in high school is going to be the most important thing in their life, and of course it's just not. But again, it's really well done, and again it's kind of trance-like, and then at some point the shooting starts, and again, very much like Alan Clarke's Elephant, there's no morality kind of thrust onto the film. it's Van Sant is essentially an observer and we're an observer, the same way we are in Alan Clarke's film. We just kind of drift along with these people and we follow these people as the events unfold. And even the ending of Elephant by Van Sant is kind of up in the air. You could actually see audiences kind of finding the 2003 film slow, and I'm sure there might actually be people who went to see it or watch it now and go, oh, when does the shooting start? When does the shooting start? Which is kind of the point, because as a film going audience and society in general, we do have this funny relationship with violence, and especially gun violence. But that's why Van Sant didn't want to glamorise the shootings when it happens. Yeah, I mean, his film ends with one of the shooters cornering two students in a walk-in freezer and playing Eeny Meeny Miny Mo, and then it just cuts and just ends. Yeah, so both films are kind of realistic. They live on realism, even though just the way they're shot, as far as Steadicam and, you know, really well crafted as far as, you know, tracking shots and circular camera movements. So they're stylized to an extent, but the actual violence is as banal and realistic as possible. So, and I would highly recommend both of them, because they, like I said, they are kind of a perfect double bill. The 1989 film's like 40 minutes, and the 2003 film 75 minutes, and that's including titles, so it's really only about 70 minutes. A lovely, upbeat, cheery double bill for you. So let me know in the comments below if you've seen both elephants, or whether you've just seen one elephant, and which elephant you prefer. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I'll be back with a video on a lighter subject than two elephants, and hopefully we'll see you again. This is the Solitude Ronin saying farewell.